Hey, Composing Gloves here, and we're going to be looking at methods for melodic composition. I'm going to show you a couple different examples. So there are a couple different methods. One of them is block composition. So you are writing things in a pattern in a block like so. This is a great example of block composition. I use it a lot in classical work because it tends to work out really well. Now, music theory will give you an edge in all of these areas. There's just going to help you in all of these areas, but it's not totally necessary. You can get by with using your ear, but it just takes way longer to do, and you might not know what moves are good moves to make. It just takes you a longer time to be creative. But you could get by using your ear, assuming you know a little bit about the piano roll and like what notes go together, sort of thing. But I digress. So we have block composition. This is a good example of it. So I wrote these things together. I actually wrote the chords after I wrote the melody, and I wrote the melody with the idea of the chords, and then I put the chords in later. So the cool thing about block composition is you have chords that can also move around, but you have a lot of different parts that sort of fit together in an intricate sort of way. It's easier to compose those sorts of things. You have another one that's just straight. Okay, so we have block composition. We have just straight melodic composition where you just pull inspiration from the universe. You think of a melody, you sing a melody, you just think one up, and then you play it or you write it down. I separate playing as a separate category. So there's one where, so that's the second one. So you just inspiration from the universe. The next one is, of course, you just play it. So you know an instrument. Generally, it helps if you know how to play the piano, but maybe you've got a MIDI pad or something, and you're just gonna play it in and doctor it up after. That's a great method, really useful if you know music theory and you can improvise on the piano, which I can do because it allows me to really know my way around. It's just way more intuitive to me to be able to do that. So you play composition, and then there's the last one, which is you pick a chord progression, you sort of run off that. Well, I guess that's another one. But then the last one is you just put notes down randomly and some sort of a fashion that makes sense to you, and you begin to manipulate it until it sounds great. So let's take a look at each of these. So here is a good example. So this one, I decided to start out this track with just a straight melody. I've noticed that this is not as common as a false riser. False risers are just everywhere in this sort of a genre. But anyways, I decided to write this sort of a melody, right? And we're going to write some melodies as well, but let's see some examples real quick. So and I said, hey, that's a pretty cool melody. And there are a couple ways to sort of go about writing a melody just from scratch like this. Because here I picked a chord progression. You could tell pretty easily. I'm like, oh, A minor, I'll mess with F. And then I'm using melodic tools. So I'm taking advantage of my music theory here to do this. So I'm pulling inspiration from the universe and coming up with a systematic way of approaching it in this particular case. I'm like, hey, it sounds cool. So I decided, hey, I'll do A minor, F, G major, and then E. So that's a really common chord progression. So it's very, very cool. So let's go ahead and write a melody sort of like that. And you might be going, how do you know about the rhythms and these notes in between? And the answer is, I know music theory. So I know now in this case, I'm working in a scale, but I also know when it's okay to sort of deviate from that scale, which I don't. I do it a little bit right here. And there are different reasons why you do this at different times. And that's all music theory related, and it's also just ear related. You can figure it out using your ear. Over here, I took the same thing from the first 4 bars, which is a common thing. You'll write 2 bars and write 4, and then once you have your 4, you copy your 4 over, and then you change it there. And to embellish it more, I added some 30-second notes to create some interesting dynamic movement. But let's go ahead and just come up with a cool melody real quick. So, which one is this? Oh, it is that one. Perfect. So we are going to go ahead and just write something in here. And we'll start with A minor as well. Now, when you're writing pluck melodies, you could go for the minimalistic sort of just put crap down and see how it sounds. But I prefer to sort of do it with some sort of a theory, because sometimes it's all about the timbre of the sound and letting it ring out rather than the notes it's playing. You just need the rhythm and the notes not to get in the way of the amazing sound design that you have going on. So we're going to play an A. And so I'm going to stay in straight time. But I have a whole course on rhythm if you're interested in moving into different rhythms. Because borrowed time, I'm going to move into borrowed time a bit. Borrowed time is a big thing in these sorts of melodies. So we're going to go C. And then I know that I could go to E. That'd be kind of obvious, though, and a little boring. So I'm going to go to A. And then I'm going to go A, E. So these are all notes inside the A minor chord. And I'm going to go A minor, and then I'm going to do the same thing I did on the other one. So I'm going to go A minor, F, G, E. So A minor, F major, G major, E major, A minor. So A minor is going to be the only minor chord. And so we have A minor, and it sounds like this right now. And that sounds kind of dumb, but we could spice it up a bit and maybe move something off the beat. It's kind of a cool deal. And not have it so synchronized up. That's kind of cool. So we'll run with that. And so this is something I'd come in and mess around with. So you see, I'm using some degree of like sense and some degree of thinking of a melody, but at the same time, I'm just kind of putting down notes in the rhythmic fashion that I believe will work out kind of well. So we go A minor, and then we'll go to F. And so let's put an F right there. And then we'll go. And so I'm going to outline that chord and go. Now, I'm not embellishing anything right now. I'm sticking with just straight chord tones. And then we'll go to G. And we're going to go G major. Go to B, maybe a D. And do maybe a fast run here because we haven't had one of those. And it's on the second strongest beat in the measure. So it'll be kind of cool to have right here. So we'll have a... And then we'll go to E. So right now I've added on this section. You might be going, how do you know to put the notes there? It's just, you just got to put down notes and experiment a bunch. So anyways, let's see how it sounds. That's all right. It's a little, There's a class too for this. Like you could take classes, they're called musicianship. And that's your job, is they play a melody and it's your job to write it down. And it can be kind of stressful. It's called dictation. That's what that skill is referred to as. So being able to look at a melody and just know what it sounds like is a very valuable skill, obviously, for a composer or producer. Let's not do that. And then we'll go to E. I'm going to do, this is a borrowed time move. So this is going to be kind of cool because this is naturally, it's a natural half step. So it'll resolve really naturally to A. And here I go borrowed time and then I go into straight time, which when you put them together, it sounds pretty cool. So you see, we did that. I mean, it sounds pretty cool, kind of jives. I could totally see that being a bigger thing. We beef it up with some more synths. And then, you have a big kick. It sounds really cool. So that is the first method. So you can see here, it's not too crazy complicated. Now, the next method, something else. When you're composing, the sounds you're working with will largely help or diminish your abilities to create. Like if you're working with really uninspiring sounds, it's just not, you can still do it. That's the way it used to always be done. You didn't even get to hear it. You had to use the sounds in your head. That's really great. But I'm telling you, working with great sounds is so helpful. So you generally want to have some of your sound designs sorted out. I'll work with I'll work with saw waves a lot of the time though. I kind of like that sound anyways. So, okay, we have that method. Now, let's say that, okay, we've got our melody. We came up with it. Let's say that we want to do some block pattern composition now. Let's say that we want to do that, which is what I actually did here. You see, I took one method and went into the next to develop it. Now here, we're not going to get into morphing and stuff yet, but there are layers moving up and down. So you can see the pluck sound actually changes throughout this thing. So you can see that you can see the length going up and the drums are coming in as well. So there's other interesting things going on besides just the melody, but the melody is the main feature. Now, okay, we've got this. Let's say that we need to add in some sort of a bass thing, right? And let's see here. That's the sub bass. let's just make a bass sound real quick. Let's just do a general saw wave bass. So I'm going to hit F8 and go to Harmor. And now we are entering the pattern-based workflow or block workflow. And this can move into what I call the chopping workflow. Now, I don't have a fancy name. It sounds kind of dumb. Maybe someone come up with a better one for me. But anyways, I'll show you that one in a previous project file because I tried doing it in this one and it did not sound that great. Okay, so we know that we're going F. Now, and if you're just putting down things randomly, looking for the universe to help you out, then this is a lot harder. You kind of got to figure out what notes go where. But this is going to be our bass sound. So it's really simple right now because these sounds I'll actually layer in and just distort a little bit later. So this is kind of close to what I want to work with anyways. And so I'm going to go down to A3. And something you may consider doing is writing out your notes over the ghost notes if you really, really need ghost notes. They're a super big help. And then you can bring them down 2 octaves later. Or you could just take this thing down 2 octaves. That way you can write all your notes in the same area. Now, the problem with that is sometimes your drums, I wish there was a way to exclude the drums from the ghost notes. I wonder if there is. I haven't looked into it. Maybe there is. Because those have no bearing on the harmonic structure. So ghost notes for those are a little like, I don't really want those sometimes. But anyways, I digress. Here we go. So we're going to play. So something I'm going to do right now is I'm going to make this legato. I'm not going to have chords going around in my bass. So I want my bass to slide around like so. Like that. That's not even in the same chord. So I'm going to go for sort of a pulsing bass line. And I'm going to have it slide up and slide back down. I'm not sure if this will actually slide down. Yeah, it just slides up because it's legato. And now we didn't embellish this at all, but I'm gonna bring this down a step to go to F, right? So I could just go straight F, but then it's not quite as smooth. So I know that in A minor, a G is going to be just fine. And later on, it becomes a G sharp when we get to the E major chord. But right now, it's going to be a G. So this is going to be a little bit smoother. I could even try doing a slide like, wow. That's a really popular thing. People like to do these slide stops on their chords. That's a bit different. Those are like time manipulation techniques. But anyways, we're going to... Let's see how that sounds. That might be a little dumb. So the thing about the bass tones is this is what's called your fundamental. It's going to determine the inversion of your chord. So if we're playing A minor and A is in the bass, you're working with a root position chord, even if these things are doing something else. So a lot of interesting rules come into play here, and we can get into part writing and stuff. And fundamentals have to do with sound design. So I don't know why I mentioned here, but I've sort of got this like melded understanding of sound design and music theory now. But anyways, let's see that. Let's try changing the rhythm up. Now, this is happening on beat 3, so this is kind of an interesting move. That is called syncopation. So we just added a bit of syncopation into it. Makes it sound a little more interesting, kind of a cool deal. But I want to keep driving with this sort of moving line. We'll go to G. If I go down to a lower G, that won't work. And I could go to D or B, but those would create interesting variations in the inversions. And this is big room. It's not known for being harmonically dense. So we're going to go ahead and just copy that over. And then we know that we go to an E next. And then I want this to slide down to an F. And so it's going to slide to the F and then reach the E, which is our final destination. And then I know that this is going to be our final line, so I have a little room to do maybe a small riff because this is the end of our phrase. So I'll go like that. Let's see how that sounds. So yeah, that's all right. It might be a little bit smoother too, because this is going to go back to an A at the end. So it might be kind of a cool move to go down and then have it repronounce the note. So if this was over, it'd slide again, and that wouldn't sound that great. See, that's it's just a touch smoother. So, okay, we've got our 2 lines. Now let's say that, okay, well, that's pretty cool. I want to thicken it up. An easy way to do this is an ARP. And I go both ways on auto ARPs, meaning you just write in chords and it automatically ARPs it for you, and ARPs that you have to write in every single note yourself. I think there's just phenomenal control over the second one. But we're going to do an auto ARP just to keep things a little short here. So I'm going to go up. I'm going to make this ARP go for a range of 2 octaves. This is covered in the FL12 effects series. If you go into the MIDI section, that's where I talk about some of that stuff. But anyways, that's an ARP. And what we're going to do is I'm going to turn on unison, bring it down a bit. And you can see it's already working. And I'm going to turn this down. And what's cool about this particular method is they give you a gate option. So that's pretty cool. And we're just going to outline the chords. I'm not going to do chordal movements like I did on the other one. And so we're just going to put down an A, a C, an E, F, A, do, G, E. So we're going to hit home to go back to the beginning. Our bass is outrageously loud because we've been working on our bass. But now we need to make it. And it's also not super bassy. So let's take it down an octave. And we could even try pitching. What we could do is we could bring this up an octave and pitch this down an octave. No, that's a bad idea. I'm just going to sort of tuck it out of the way for now. I'm not going to be dealing with that sort of thing. But anyway, you hear the ARP going and it fits in there right away. Now, we haven't even gone into any sound design or anything, but we could add a little bit of... So that's pretty cool. So we've gotten, this is the block pattern composition. So we went from one to the other, but you could go the other way. So now we're basing our new methods off of what we've previously done, or you could write a new melody. Something else that's really handy is knowing your embellishment tool. So let's say you've done this for a little while. You need some variations on your melody, right? This isn't going to fly for a longer phrase. You're going to need something new. So let's just vary up this one instead of writing a new thing. And I have a good example later on in this track of some interesting development. So what we have here is we have this. And so we have all these gaps between notes. These are all advantage points. Now this one, probably we didn't leave ourselves very much wiggle room here. So we have neighbor tones, appoggiaturas, all sorts of nifty things that I'm sure most big room producers don't even know exist. But they're using them without total knowledge. So we could go something like, we could add in a note here, and that would be a good move. And we could even change the chord tone to just be different. And maybe even change up the rhythm. No, I'll leave the rhythm this one. And we'll go to an A. So the first time around, it's going to be important that those are like Fs because you need to give the listener an establishment of the key. They're going to be looking to the bass and then the way your melody jives with it. So we go to A, and then we know that we can go down an F here. And we could go maybe for a small embellishment here. So we go. This would be an okay opportunity for a neighbor tone as well, but we're not going to do it. So I'm going to go A. And now this is an opportunity for a run as well. So I'm going to go like this. And see how that goes. So these are essentially, this is a leap. Nothing, I don't know. I don't have any specific thing I'm trying to do here, but these are just going to be a scale run down. So it's all right. We'll see how it goes. We could try E flat. No, we're not going for that sort of a vibe. Okay. That's too many notes. So that's another thing. You're probably going to overcomplicate stuff when you do it. So you go through it, do whatever you think you need to do, and then comb it like 3 or 4 times so that you back off the complexity. So let's just say that's great. Now the ending, that ending is sort of a signature ending. So we may want to do something different. So we've changed it up a little bit. Even the rhythms, you know, you just vary stuff up, and we've now added a couple tones that are in the scale, but not in the chords. a quick thing about adding notes like this. Now, this is all covered in the music theory from the ground up and like the 70 to 80 video range. As far as numbers are concerned, but you generally don't want the passing tones. It's like a rule, actually. You don't want passing tones on a strong beat. You don't want them on the beat. You want chord tones on those beats. That way you're outlining your key. But like right here, this is a totally weak beat, so it's a perfect opportunity to put a note there. I don't always like, I have these rules sitting in the back of my mind when I do it, but I'm not like a stickler. If it sounds cool, it's cool, so I'm gonna do that. So okay, we've done some block pattern composition. We've done some embellishment, so you could clone that and add it onto your development. You could even, now a really cool thing is you add more chords. So obviously, if you start with a 2-bar phrase, you're giving yourself not very much wiggle room. If you give yourself 4 chords, that's some more. And then if you give yourself an 8-chord phrase, that's like a lot of room. You can do a lot of cool things with that. But you can get away with a lot of interesting moves with just 2 bars, which is another common thing people will do is they will write 2 bars. So let's come in here to our lead and let's say, okay, I want to write a 2-bar cool phrase. And let's say we want to go for sort of an interesting, I don't know, Middle Eastern vibe. Not Middle Eastern. Some other place that's not Western harmony. So let's go like this. Now, it's kind of hard because they have like quarter tone movements and stuff, but we're just going to make do with what we have. So sometimes you'll see these repeating phrases. This little group of notes would be referred to as a motif or a small theme. And it's just a tiny group of notes, and it repeats over and over and over. Not always. So, now, motifs can be hidden inside more complex phrases. So that's something that smaller phrases in your composition give you the opportunity for. But if we play this... Now let's just say that, oh, that doesn't sound very good. Actually, even sounds a little dumb. So let's go ahead and make it not dumb. Let's move these over one. Let's do a triple drop. So let's just say that's another thing is people will do these repeating things. Just a lot of this can also depend on the sound you're working with. And then, so we've written our first bar. So that's done. Now we're going to write out our second bar and give it a small variation. So we're going for this sort of chromatic, interesting feel here. So that's a common thing, right? And people will grab it. And what you do is, so we've got 2 bars and you clone it over. This is common for like intro type stuff, but not necessarily the main melodic meat of the song. And then you don't really change the rhythm typically with these, but you might. But you just change up some of the notes. So then you could go ahead and add in like, you clone this and you'd make a couple more variations. It's not like that dense. All right, now let's get into some more sort of complicated melodies. So here I've got a pretty big melody going down. Let's go ahead and give it a listen real quick. I want to be in the, what the heck? I have something selected. Oh, it's on here. It's selected. Okay, fix that. All right, so let's go ahead and take a listen to this thing. This is pretty beefy. So you might be going, how did you come up with that? Like, how'd you do that one? And the answer is I went for what the universe gave me on this one. So I do this quite a bit because I don't always have a keyboard in front of me. So I'll hum a melody about like boo ba 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 da ba 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 na 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 na, like it just comes. I don't know how else to explain it. I just think of things to sing and it comes. And then I try to remember what I sang. That's often a problem. And I don't always translate what I sang perfectly. I've gotten a lot better over the years, but I don't always do that. And so I come out with interesting things. And so this one, as you can see, is a chordal movement. But when I was writing it, It's just moving the notes that I think I need to move. Now, I know I'm working in a key, and I know that the notes I'm singing are going to be in that key generally. I don't generally sing others into other scales and stuff unless I'm doing something very deliberately, and I know what that sounds like. So I sang it, and I was taking advantage of you notice there's a couple layers here, but they're just copying each other basically, and I have the legato on for the slide time. So that's sort of an important thing in this sort of a melody. And so that was the idea. So I'm sorry I can't be of more help in this sort of arena, but if we were to come in here and just write out another cool melody, like let's just say we want to go, now I know I'm working in A minor, so I'm going to stick in there, but let's go dun, 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 like, I don't know, something like that. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, it's too slow. And the reason is it's just stuff like, yeah, sometimes I'm on it and I can write it right away. Other times I'm not. My musicianship and dictation need a little bit of work. But the reason why I was like thinking about that again is because when you go dun, 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 it's like a phrase that fits in a bar. So I'm like, wait, this isn't fitting in the bar. So I wrote something weird somewhere. Let's see if I can fix this up. Triplet. I sing in triplet, so I'm gonna go with dun, 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 dun. But that's fine. I'm just not gonna deal with the borrowed time right now. Do 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 do. That's pretty cool. That isn't what I sang, but it's along the lines of what I want to do. And then I come in here, I re-sing it, I retune it, I adjust it. It's kind of a long process sometimes, but at the end of the day, you get something that is pretty darn cool and unique. Now, if we come over here, you will notice that this one is the exact same thing as this, only I have just changed the voicing, which is a tool. You have an arrangement. So anyways, you get the idea. So this is repeating over there, but over here, I did one of those, I'm just going to feel it out. Grab the universe, grab my knowledge of music theory and make something cool. Over here, I went into harmonies a bit. So writing harmonies and stuff isn't something we're going to get into here, but what I did here is not that dense. It's pretty complicated. I simply thought of a chord and added notes in those chords. I wasn't following any sort of a set structure of rules like you typically would in 4-part writing. And then this is the outro. I don't know. It sounds okay. So that's that. So that's a couple of methods. So I have another example here that I want to show you, which is a previous version of Snowblind. That's what this track is called. Snowblind. This is before I decided to up and ditch the drop I was doing. And this one uses the pattern method. I've used this on a couple compositions, and sometimes it works really well. And what it is you write out this crazy melody, right? Like you struggle through and you write out this melody, but then they're not really sure what to do after that. So what I decided to do instead was I took that melody. So this is the same melody as this thing at the intro. This is the exact same song. Same deal, only I took it, I chopped it up, and I tried to make a phrase out of all the chops. That's what I did. And occasionally I'll go and I'll edit and doctor things to fit better. So I came up with this in this version. that's what I came up with there. Sometimes this works really well, sometimes this doesn't work at all. And in this case, I was getting like a 50%, like, oh, it kind of jives, kind of doesn't. And eventually I just decided, you know what? Nah. And I just got rid of it and made my own thing. And so that is the chop method. So you just simply take a melody and so if I were to pull one of these out and extend it, if this is not unique, which I don't believe this is, there's the rest of the melody. And if we were to listen to that, so it sounds like the thing from before. Now, the way you do this is you grab, it's the same, I do this with audio if I make crazy samples. And so what you do is you go over to your slider tool, which is this guy right here, and you'll hold down shift to get quickly to your tools and you can move them around. And I go, okay, I'm going to start with, obviously the first note should probably be the note I'm playing. So I'm going to leave that alone. It's not letting me extend it. That's kind of strange. Whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and put another one. No, I want all four of my notes. So I'm going to do chops like this, right? And then I'll come in here and I'll say, oh, that's kind of cool. Let's see what that sounds like. And I'm like, hey, I like that one more. I'm going to stick with that. And I use this in a lot more than just melodic composition. I use this in all sorts of situations. So then I'll be like, okay, cool. That's great. Let's clone this. And I want to keep the same phrase there. Let's change this and change that and change this. And then put it in there. It's like a randomizing machine. I'm like, oh, great. So let's go ahead and take this away now because we have the reference data. And we're just going to clone that. Like, oh, let's see what that sounds like together. And so see, that doesn't quite jive. So I'm going to come in here and move things, maybe find the ones that I don't think work as well as other ones do. And eventually I come up with something that's kind of cool. And so that was the idea here. And this is an example of it that didn't quite work. But you notice this thing made it into the new melodic drop as the end part for it. But I kept this little that was originally a fill for this in the other one. So, you know, you got to try various things. Now I have one more file here that I was working on, and it's called Put It Down. All right, so this one works on the principle of layers a little bit more. So you can see there are filters coming up, and I sort of have an impact. Now the rise and the drop aren't like totally amazing, but in this one I made everything. So the impact sound, the sub drop, everything, just because they're fun things to make. Just they're not always the funnest thing to make when you just need an impact sound and it doesn't need to be like this crazy thing. I'm gonna hit F12 because that's annoying. Okay, so what we have here, let me go ahead and just play for you what we have. So this melody, what happens is I wrote this like big one first and I did a little bit of sound design and added 2 layers. And then I'm moving the filters on them to bring them up into each other. The melody itself, how'd you write the melody? Well, this is one okay. Now when you're writing melodies based on music theory and stuff, you can work off ideas. One of the ideas, because of course I could play one in and this is what I'll do a lot. And if you can't do this, then it's kind of mute. You either learn how to do it, learn how to play an instrument, which I totally recommend. Learn piano, or if you have like a machine controller or pads of some kind that you can hit in a rhythmic fashion, you can get great stuff out of that as well. I have some friends who do that and they pump out stuff. You'll never be at the proficiency level of, say, a piano player as far as being able to manipulate theory like they can. Because then I know you're going to point me at like some crazy finger drummers that I've seen. But like it's just not as versatile an instrument as is the piano. So that's just the end of it. So what we're going to do is, so I could play something in. This is like really loud. I should probably turn down the volume on here. Okay, cool. So another thing when you're working, it's going to sound dumb if you listen to it soft. This stuff's meant to be listened to loud. At least that's my personal opinion. So if I really want to, if I'm going to be writing something like this, I have to be listening at a louder volume. Otherwise, I just think it sounds dumb just because of the sound. So that's another thing. Your mindset's important. Let's say that I want to do something like, let's see it here. I've got some lag, so this is kind of difficult, but I'm thinking of doing something like dun 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 na 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 dun dun na 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 na. That last note didn't hit for whatever reason. But anyways, you get the idea. You can play something in really cool. And over here, you can use ideas, the theories of kinds. So on this one, I said, I like to do this sort of a thing a lot. Whoa, where'd my sound go? Oh, I moved the playlist head. That's what's going on. Stuff like that, where you hit the same note over and over and over. And if you think about or look at piano music, you can readily see techniques that are super obvious. Like, oh, look, they're holding the low note down there. That's called the pedal point composition. While they do other things in the top that make it an interesting contrast. You have all these different ideas that are sort of music theory ideas, and you can take advantage of those in a composition. So one of those is we could go, oh, on every other note, we're going to hit the C. And then you can vary this up to sort of take the listener on an adventure of kinds. So let's say we're going to do this, and then, so C, G, you know, whatever it is. So let's try this again. So, because that one was kind of dumb. Let's go. Let's start with C. Let's jump down to C. Let's put the neighboring ones out there. So you can look at it sort of like from this perspective, which is kind of an interesting way to view it. So we're going to go, hey, I'm going to do some interesting sort of off the wall, weird chromatic stuff in the middle, but I'm going to always come back to this idea of the da-nun at the end and beginning of like my small phrase. Or let's say that we want to do the every other note thing. And take this over here and bring these. We could run through a chord progression like this. That's not a very great chord progression, but you get the idea. You can do some interesting things by using ideas to write melodies, theories, and then you manipulate it as you go to become the thing that you want. So anyways, that's my 2 cents on a lot of the methods I use for melodic writing. I'm sure there are more that I just haven't mentioned, but those are like the big ones. So when I'm going to sit down and write something and I've got literally nothing in front of me to work off of, I'm going to do something like that. Usually I am going to mess around on the piano a little bit and see where I go from there. Maybe listen to some other tracks just to get some ideas. Because, for example, a pluck drop's going to be a totally different deal than one that's supposed to be an enormous riser with the incredible melody, or maybe a repeating melody that just drives and use other elements to back it up. Like, there's just a lot of options. If you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe and have a blessed day.